Problem is, he's the big loser in it because he's a double world champion. He's the guy that expects to be a title contender. He's now dropped well over 40 points down on his teammate. He's given up points to Top Rack again, and he's the one that pays the price for it. But he pays the price because he qualified badly. And if you make a mistake in the Super Pole session, or if you're just not strong in a Super Pole session like Alvaro is, then you leave yourself vulnerable to things like that. When you're Bulaga qualifying on the front row of the grid, basically every weekend he's been in World Superbikes. When you're Top Rack, always up there in the front row of the grid, you keep yourself away from those troubles. If you're in the mid-pack, you're stuck in the mire, you're in the jungle, and anything goes back there.
Yes, indeed, it really is the jungle out there at mid-pack. I was in the garage yesterday when Alvaro Bautista came in, and I was trying to get a reaction. However, you as you can expect, Alvaro Bautista was not best pleased, and neither was Scott Redding with it. Both pointing the finger at each other. However, both riders sometimes just going for the same piece of tarmac on the opening stages of the race. It can get a little bit crazy out there. Xavi Vierge on screen now, the number 97. P6 yesterday, a very good result for the Honda team. And I was speaking to Jose Esquimez on Friday, and he was confident of a better weekend, or even better than Phillip Island. And it seems to be, as of yesterday, things are going in the right direction for Honda.
Yeah, for Honda, they qualified well with Xavi, and when you qualify well here, that made a big difference yesterday. It meant that he was able to stay in that lead group and then come away with a top 5 finish. It was actually a pretty lonely, probably a little bit of a boring race for him, but he had 5-6 seconds in front of him that was clear. He had a couple of seconds behind him to Van der Mark, and it ended up being just pretty standard for Xavi, really, but really positive to see a result like that because Phillip Island was tough for Honda. It's another season where you're waiting for everything to click into place for Honda. They've got that good result at the start of the year, but now the pressure's on to build on that. We know that the Honda's good in the Super Pole race usually, so Xavi needs to make sure he finishes inside the top 9, and then you wait and see what happens for race 2, but good start to the weekend for him.
Yeah, and even Iker Lecuona, his teammate, had a positive day considering he's coming back from injury on the number 7 Honda machine. Here's Danilo Petrucci, the top independent rider from yesterday. 4th place finish for Danilo. Goes from the outside of the front row here today on the Barney Ducati. And Danilo Petrucci has had a good solid start to the season so far. And of course he'll be hoping to chase the podium here today. However, Andrea Locatelli was just a little bit too out of touch for him yesterday. But on that Barney Ducati, Danilo Petrucci is looking on song. Another rider that will be looking for a big result here today is Alex Lowes. He did lose his lap from qualifying yesterday. He did suffer a crash in the opening stages of Super Pole yesterday. Then yellow flags made sure that he would start from the back of the grid. He was running in 9th position yesterday. It took him until lap 9 to get into 9th. And then as soon as he went into turn number 1, on lap number 10, unfortunately just tucked the front over the bump a little bit, and down he went. But Alex Lowes showing good speed this weekend, and of course was chasing his twin brother Sam, and Sam is another one who'll be looking for a big result here today. Was looking brilliant yesterday, well and truly in the podium battle, but unfortunately just came a cropper in the middle part of yesterday's race. So he's still chasing his first podium, and Steve, you have to imagine that in the Super Pole race here today, he will be well and truly in the mix.
Yeah, I think it's one of those situations for both those brothers. There's a very contrasting weekend, and a bit of bad luck for Alex. Obviously, it's his fault for the crash, but then bad luck with the yellow flags. And a little bit like Bautista in his situation, a lot of the time in Super Pole, you need to make sure you've got that banker lap time in. Alex didn't have that, then you have the crash, then you have the yellows. He ends up not really being able to put in a representative time, qualifies the back of the field. There's a bit of bad luck in it, and then you pay the cost for that all the way through the weekend. He did a good job in yesterday's race. He was up into 13th, 14th position on the first lap. He needs to do the same in today's race, and then try and do the next step in those 10 laps. He is a Super Pole race specialist. He'll be confident about being able to come away with a point in 9th, and then that 3rd row of the grid. And that's a good opportunity for him. For Sam, it's another big step for him this weekend. He was so strong in Phillip Island, probably the best we've seen from him in World SBK. Qualifies well in the middle of the 2nd row of the grid. Has a crash yesterday, which is unfortunate for him, but at least you're crashing out of those leading positions. You're having a good performance and a good race. He needs to, in the Super Pole race, make a good start, consolidate that, come away with a top 6 finish.
Yeah, he does indeed. You can imagine both Lowes twins will be absolutely on it today, both the Super Pole race and race number 2. We're riding on board here with Alvaro Bautista. He's currently top of the session where he'll want to be today. However, he will be in the jungle in the early stages. He'll just have to keep his nose clean. He's powder dry in the opening stages of the race and see where it goes from there. But I think Toprak will be, he doesn't quite go to the top of the standings, goes to P3, but he won't mind. It's only warm-up. However, he has been the rider to beat so far here this weekend. Missed all of FP1, well, barring an out lap. And then in FP2, we did see his true pace, and he's really been untouchable ever since then, up into race number 1, where Nicola Buliga, we thought as soon as Toprak got into the lead of the race, he might just scurry off into the distance. However, Nicola Buliga was putting up a fight yesterday. Another rider that we saw battling hard was Domi Aguilar with his teammate Remy Gardner. Those two were well adrift of Andrea Locatelli, the other Yamaha, just up the road. However, they were given as a good battle further down the field at the bottom reaches of the top 10, and we'll be hoping for more of that today. Battles all the way down the field yesterday, and it was good to watch as we're watching Alvaro Bautista come across the lane. Now his teammates gone to the top of the standings. A bit of a speed wobble as he got some air underneath that front wheel. However, doesn't really give him too much of an issue as he heads down towards turn number 1.
Yeah, and we know that Alvaro is obviously going to be strong in the races. That's where race 1 was disappointment for him, because if he hadn't had that crash with Redding, then you'd imagine on that opening lap he still finds a way to make moves down the start finish straight, find his way into those top 10 positions and working his way up through the points paying positions, and would have had a decent enough performance yesterday. That's where it's costly to have an incident like that. The Super Bowl race is tough for Alvaro though, and 10 laps is a sprint race for these riders, but this is also the longest track of the year, so that might help Alvaro a little bit. We're using harder tyres as well, don't have the Q tyre available, so maybe for Alvaro it comes back to him a little bit. But yesterday put him into a hole, and we've said a few times already this weekend that when Alvaro's in a hole, it's difficult for him. He tends to, almost that momentum works against him.
Yeah, it does indeed. However, we have seen him come out swinging in the past when the weekend hasn't quite started on right terms for the two-time champion. Another rider that'll be hoping for a good solid day is the rider on screen, the number 7, Iker Lecuona. His first weekend back after injury, and Iker Lecuona will just be hoping to just get some mileage under his belt this weekend and pick up some good points. We did see yesterday Chappie Verhey on the other hunting machine pick up a top 5 finish with Iker Lecuona in fringes of the points. As Sam Lowe is once again, he has been looking absolutely brilliant, barring any electrical issues he's had this weekend, but so far so good for the English rider.
Yeah, a couple of problems in FP1 for Sam at the end of it, and for him though, he seems to be riding well. He's working well with Gorka, his new crew chief for this year, and it seems that the environment is a lot better for him to be able to have good results. Last year he started the season really well in Phillip Island. Catalonia went well for the second round, and Nassim was decent as well, but then as the season went on, injuries picked up, and that took the momentum away from him. Coming into the second season for him and for the Elfmark VDS team, they know the importance of being able to have that momentum at the start of the season. Crash yesterday was unfortunate. You need to be able to give yourself something now to be able to build on for today, and that's exactly what Nicola Buliga is doing as well. There you can see another fastest lap for him, and down into the 1 minute 39s.
The only rider in the 1 minute 39s for the time being, half a second quicker than anybody else. I think Toprak was probably just closing the gap a little bit on this lap, but he won't go to the top. Maybe second position for the reigning champion. Goes across the line half a second off Nicola Buliga's time. However, Locatelli is on course for a second position. But we just saw Andrea Iannone a couple of moments ago. Finished 7th yesterday, however, 18.7 seconds off the win. He won't be too happy with that. He has struggled so far this weekend. On Friday morning, he did have a rear brake issue. It was rectified pretty quickly. However, Andrea Iannone has been a little bit off song so far this weekend, but he'll be hoping to come out swinging here today as we're watching Andrea Locatelli absolutely brilliant yesterday in race 1. Third position for the Italian, another podium, his first podium of 2025. However, it was a really warm day yesterday, and we saw that especially from Andrea Locatelli, who was, well, we can say dripping with sweat. Maybe not just quite sweat, however, he was drenched in water as well, but you could just see in Park for me, it seemed to not just be physically challenging, but mentally challenging for him as well, just to get that monkey off his back, his first podium of the season.
Yeah, and it is one of those situations for the riders that the challenge around here is that it's such a long race, and particularly for someone like Locatelli, considering that there's pressure on him. Jonathan Raisin here, who's the Yamaha rider, He was 10 seconds up the road from England in Yamaha yesterday. He's asserted himself here for this weekend.
He has indeed, as Nicola Bulliga just matches his previous lap time of 39.968. So Nicola Bulliga is looking like the rider to beat here today. However, it's only morning warm-up. You can imagine some of the riders aren't pushing to 100%, just maybe getting the bike dialed in, especially for some of the riders that didn't finish yesterday's race as Michael van der Mark rounds the final corner. Another rider that we could possibly mention as having a positive day yesterday was Taryn McKenzie on the MIE Honda. Picked up 14th position yesterday. Doesn't sound like much, however, that team has been a little bit subdued for points so far in their World Superbike career. It was Taryn McKenzie's first points since round 3 at Assen last year, so Taryn McKenzie will be hoping to push along and get some more points on the board here today and for the rest of this season, as we're back with Danilo Petrucci. He's also setting some consistent lap times in morning warm-up here today. So far, he's 0.3 of a second off Nicola Bulliga through the third split. Brings it downhill right-hander, the final corner. Absolutely spectacular final corner here at Portimao. Across the line he goes. Will he be able to close that gap to Nicola Bulliga? Yes, he does. It's 4/10 of a second down. However, Nicola Bulliga, he has set 2 lap times exactly equal in the previous 2, and he seems to be well dialed in with that Aruba Ducati. Alvaro Bautista, he's found some late speed in warm-up. He's gone up to 3rd position, and Axel Bassani just following him. Bassani will be looking for another strong ride today. Finished in 9th yesterday. Another top 10 for Bassani, who has been struggling so far around here in Portimao through testing and of course this weekend.
Yeah, he's made a step forward during the course of the race weekend. Came with a top 10 finish yesterday. Obviously, we've got those incidents in front of him, but for Bassani, it's about trying to make sure you build on that today. The Super Bowl race can be very difficult for him, but coming with points in race 2, that's definitely what the target has to be.
Yeah, and he does indeed. And if Alex Lowe's comes through on him, maybe I'll just be able to tag onto the back of his Bimota teammate and follow him through the field. As we're just watching the practice start, looks like a good start for the Bimota of Alex Lowe's. Getting ready for Iannone as well. Front wheel comes up a little bit, probably not quite as good. Alvaro Bautista, much better start initially before the front wheel pops off the ground, but no problem there for Alvaro Bautista as he runs on deep in towards the car layout at turn number 5. So for today's warm-up, the last one before the action really begins, it's Nicola Bulliga leading the way, the only rider into the 139s ahead of Danilo Petrucci, who has been well and truly inside the top 5 this weekend. Qualified 3rd yesterday, was 4th yesterday in race number 1. He'll be looking for a podium today. And Alvaro Bautista, it's a Ducati lockout of the top 3 before Toprak Razgat Lioglu next up, and then podium finisher Andrea Locatelli in 5th.
Yeah, and